This is the new Lexus NX. Now, in case you aren't familiar with it, well, it sits below the Lexus RX and it squares off against rivals like the GLC and the BMW X3. It is though priced at a slight premium over them, so naturally the first thing I want to see is it worth it? And of course, we're also going to go out and drive and explore the whole car and get to see what this all-new car is really about. Yes, I did say it's all new. Now, if you're looking at it, you're probably thinking it's quite familiar to the previous NX. You'd be right, but it's an all-new generation. The earlier car was on the MC platform. This is on the new GA platform. That similarity or the familiarity probably comes through because of the very strong design language of Lexus. I mean, if you look at it, instantly it's recognizable as a Lexus. The angular cuts and all the 3D surfacing look really amazing, especially here in the flesh. I really love it, but that's my opinion. So let me know what you think in the comments. And do remember to subscribe to the Autocar India channel and hit the like button. And if you'd like to see reviews in Hindi, subscribe to our Autocar India channel too. Now at the front, obviously the Lexus spindle grille is still there. It's really massive and large. The headlights too have that angular treatment. The previous NX had a split unit, so you had the headlamp unit and a DRL. This one, it's one combined unit. And of course, you've got your fog lights down below, set in some really sharp and angular looking bumper. I would call them extensions because they're quite broad and look really sporty and nice. Now over at the side, the angular treatment carries on and there are some nice character lines that flow. There's one over here that divides and comes up and down. I don't know if you'll pick that up on the camera and in this harsh sunlight, but it does look nice in the flesh. All the cuts and creases, typically Lexus, really nice and sharp. The alloys, they're 20 inches and a fairly low profile. I mean, remember, this is not an off-roader, but having said that, getting to this ground, as you can see here, we had to go through a little trail, a rocky trail, and we had really no problem. Ground clearance is increased over the previous car by about 10 mm, so it's now 195 mm. Now at the rear, the angular design treatment does carry on and you've got some interesting elements. In fact, I really love the taillights that extend all the way. In fact, right now it's daytime, so you probably can't see it, but at the night the red bits here illuminate. They look really quite eye-catching and actually offer a nice contrast on a color other than red. And of course the regular bits are all there, the angular cuts and creases here, sharply tapered rear windscreen. So yeah, at the back too, typically Lexus. So that's all of the outsides. Let's head inside, but before we do that, there's one little thing that I want to show you. These handles here, the pull type handles, well, they aren't really pull type handles. They're actually just static there. There's a little button behind, an electrical button, so when you pull, it presses the button and the doors open. The other cool bit with the handles is inside here. So when you want to exit, you basically push and it opens the door. It's what Lexus call the e-latch system. So there's a little lever here that when you push down on, it electronically releases the latch, so you can basically, again, in one smooth movement, open the door. Also, of course, just remember, in case the electrical system fails, there are manual overrides both on the outside and inside. So inside here, if you don't want to push, all you got to do is pull the handle like a conventional handle and you will be able to open the door. The other interesting bit is Lexus say that the inside portion of the handle there has an anti-static, or rather a static absorbing mat. So when I put my hands in here, if there's any static built up, it's going to drain down there. So you're not going to get, a nasty static shock when you touch the metal parts of the car. Now the insides of the new NX are really quite different compared to the predecessor. The earlier one was quite quirky. In fact, it was quite interesting. It had a lot of cuts and creases all around. This one is in that sense more traditional, but what it's done is it's a lot more modern. And if you look around, it's got this really nice cockpit kind of feel for the driver. You know, the touchscreen here and this panel kind of gives you that wraparound effect. So you feel really nice and cocooned inside. The touchscreen, it's really large. It's a 14-inch unit. It's got a lot of real estate here. It's very, very clear and very responsive to the touch. So, you know, pinch to zoom is really smooth. Responsiveness is great. It's in fact just like using a high quality tablet. Other controls, of course, you've got the touchscreen for your various functions, but thankfully they've not done away with buttons. So you've got the volume knob here, you've got climate control knobs as well. And I have to say, they are really beautifully damped, feel really nice to operate. Sound on the top two versions comes courtesy from a 17-speaker Mark Levinson system, and the steering mounted buttons that also control the unit are touch sensitive. But they also depress to give you that button feedback. And what's neat is the command also displays in the HUD. Now there's a nice little wireless charger here, and interestingly, you can also slide it away to reveal a nice deep storage while your phone is also charging. Space inside is fairly decent. It isn't really large and expansive, but I'm really comfortable. The seats are just fine and nicely supportive, but overall space isn't class leading, and the overall darker theme makes it appear even smaller still. There are amenities like the Type-C USB ports and rear AC vents, but they lack speed or temperature control. The sunroof is a large panoramic unit, but it has quite a large central panel. Boot space is also not class leading, but at 520 litres should be sufficient, and there's a large underflow unit to increase capacity. Moving on now to the driving bit. Lexus in India are all about hybrids. In fact, they market it as self-charging hybrids, and that's really because the hybrids aren't plug-in hybrids. Now, in terms of hybrid systems, just a quick note, you have a micro hybrid, which is like your Mahindra Scorpios, essentially a start-stop system. Then you have mild hybrids, which is essentially where the electrical system and the battery can assist the engine in driving scenarios too, but it cannot power the car solely on electric power. And examples of these would be Maruti's current mild hybrid technology. And then you have full hybrids or strong hybrids where you can drive on electric power alone. Now this is an example of one of those. We can drive on pure electric mode only, but because it isn't a plug-in type with a large battery, range is only about 5 kilometers. The advantage, however, is that the system continuously comes in and assists the engine, and at times even driving in EV mode only. So mileage should be good. Lexus says 16.9 kilometers per litre in standard test conditions. Now interestingly, on the engine scan tool, we saw that we had motored for about 50% of the time on electric mode only during the course of our drive. Of course, this electricity was generated on board, but mostly during coasting and braking, so the fuel impact isn't really high. So behind the wheel, I have to say it's quite entertaining. The handling is nice. There is some amount of body roll, but it's not too much and not too alarming. And you tuck into corners like this, you've got good amounts of tire grip. The steering feel is also good with just the right amount of weight at parking and at higher speeds. And the ride is really well sorted and cushions out most of what the road throws at it. What's not as entertaining though is the powertrain. Now the engine, it's a 2.5 litre 4-cylinder, and you've got two motors, one on the front axle, one on the rear. The rear axle is an e-axle only, so essentially the engine is powering only the front wheels, along with of course the electric motor, and at the back you have an electric motor only. The system is smooth and you can't detect the engine and motor switch over. However, power delivery is sedate and not punchy, and sport mode only improves this a bit. Also, when pushed hard, the engine does get quite vocal inside what is otherwise a very silent cabin. So coupled to the engine is a CVT. Now CVTs are known for that rubber band-like effect, and the previous generation car, it was quite acute. I'm happy to report here it's improved a whole lot. It's still there. In fact, you can hear it actually more than you can feel it. So the effect is quite minimized, and that's something really nice. But it isn't as smooth as the torque converter units out there in this class. So is it worth the premium over the others then? Not if it's engine power and responsiveness you're looking for, or rear seat space and amenities. What the NX offers for that premium, however, is a good ride and handling balance, a stunning touchscreen, quality and easy to use controls, and of course the fact that this is the only strong hybrid in its class. Plus you can also throw in the legendary Lexus reliability. So if all this sounds appealing to you, give the Lexus NX a good close look.